Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be, diving deep into the world of mindfulness and loving-kindness meditation
Oh, exciting.
with Sharon Salzberg.
Okay.
And our deep dive is going to be based on her book and audio meditations called Real Happiness, and we'll be unpacking the insights that will be most valuable to you from that.
Sounds great.
So have you had a chance to check out either the book or the audio meditations?
I have. And one thing that really struck me about Salzberg's work is how she makes these ancient practices so relatable.
Right.
She doesn't get lost in jargon or abstract concepts. She really speaks to the challenges that we all face.
Like in our modern lives.
Exactly, in our modern lives.
Yeah.
And she gives us practical guidance, on how to navigate those tricky spots we all encounter when we try to meditate.
And one of the things she talks about is how meditation is kind of like turning on the light in a dusty old attic. You walk into this dimly lit space, you flip the switch, and suddenly all this stuff is visible. Hidden treasures, neglected corners, maybe even some things you'd rather not see.
It's such a powerful analogy, isn't it?
It is.
Because it really captures what happens when we turn our attention inward.
Yeah.
When we become mindful, it's like illuminating the hidden aspects of our minds, our thoughts, emotions, sensations, allowing us to see them more clearly.
Yeah, and Salzberg emphasizes stillness and observation in meditation. She talks about this man who is desperately trying to outrun his shadow, running faster and faster until he collapses from exhaustion.
Oh, I remember that story.
The irony, of course, is that if he simply stepped into the shade, the shadow would vanish.
And it's a perfect metaphor for how we often approach difficult thoughts and feelings, We try to run away from them, suppress them, distract ourselves, but the more we resist, the more they persist. Meditation is about stepping into the shade, becoming still, observing those thoughts and feelings without judgment.
And sometimes when you're meditating, strong emotions can kind of pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that? Where you're trying to be all peaceful and then suddenly...
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
It can be really unsettling.
Like envy or something.
Right. Like you're meditating, you start thinking about someone's success or possessions, and suddenly you're filled with this wave of envy.
Yeah, and Salzberg says we shouldn't try to push those emotions away or get lost in them either.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about suppressing or indulging.
It's about just kind of being with them.
It is.
She says we should observe them with a sense of curiosity.
Oh, there's envy.
Hello, envy. How you doing?
Exactly. And she even suggests a technique called mental nodding, where you simply acknowledge the feeling without judgment. Just a gentle, yes, this is here.
Do you use that? Mental nodding.
I do, actually. Yeah. It's a subtle shift, but it really helps create some space between you and the emotion. It allows you to see it more objectively.
Okay, so that's dealing with like strong emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I found really fascinating in the book is Salzberg talks about these stories we create around our experiences.
Oh, yes. The add-ons.
Yeah, and how these stories can lead to suffering.
It's so true.
She calls them add-ons.
Right.
And she gives some examples. For instance, there's this speech therapist who catches herself using her mother's critical voice to undermine her own confidence. Like, she's successful in her career, she's helping people, but she has this inner voice that's constantly putting her down.
It's like we're carrying around all this baggage from the past, isn't it?
Yeah.
And those old stories can really hold us back.
And then she talks about, I think it was a marketing executive who was just consumed by anxieties about the future. What if I lose my job? What if the economy crashes? Just all this worry about what might happen.
And it's not that we shouldn't plan for the future, but when we get caught up in those anxieties, we miss out on the present moment.
And Salzberg says that mindfulness is crucial here because it helps us recognize those negative narratives and challenge them.
It's about rewriting the story we're telling ourselves.
She uses this example of reframing boredom. Like when you're trying to lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, this is so boring. I hate this diet. But instead of seeing boredom as this obstacle...
You could view it as an opportunity.
Exactly.
To explore the feeling, understand its roots, and maybe discover a more skillful way to respond.
And I was thinking about that. Like, have you ever tried to reframe challenging experiences like that?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And how has that worked out for you?
It's not always easy, but when I can catch myself in those negative thought patterns and consciously choose a different perspective, it can make a huge difference.
Okay, so we've talked about like dealing with strong emotions and those negative stories we tell ourselves.
Right.
Now, let's move into the concept of loving kindness. This is where things get really heartwarming, I think.
Yes.
Salzberg describes the practice of loving kindness meditation,
Hmm.
which involves directing phrases like, may you be happy and may you be safe,
Oh, I love that practice.
toward ourselves and others.
It's so simple, yet so powerful.
It is. And she shares this story about her student Rachel, who develops a new sense of connection with her dry cleaner simply by including him in her loving kindness meditations.
I think it was just a simple, may you be well.
Yes. And it's amazing how small acts of kindness can have such a ripple effect.
Right.
And I think that reminds me of something the Dalai Lama said. He said that by making the happiness of others equivalent to our own, we increase our chances of delight 6 billion to 1. So, I mean, that's pretty compelling, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And Robert Thurman, who is a professor of Buddhist studies, has this really powerful analogy. Imagine you're on a subway car, right?
Okay.
And the subway car suddenly gets zapped by extraterrestrials, and you're all going to be stuck together forever.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where is this going?
So Thurman suggests that in this situation, we'd naturally start taking care of each other,
Right.
right? Like we would feed those who are hungry, comfort those who are afraid.
We'd have to.
We might not like everyone on that subway car, but we'd understand that our lives are interconnected. And then he poses the question, isn't living on planet Earth kind of like being in that subway car?
Oh, yeah. I see where you're going with this,
We're all in this together, our lives are intertwined.
whether we acknowledge it or not.
Exactly. So how do we make loving kindness a more active part of our lives? What tips does Salzberg give?
Well, she suggests, first of all, seeing kindness as a strength, not a weakness.
It's not about being a pushover.
No.
It's about approaching situations with wisdom and courage.
And she also encourages us to actively look for the good in ourselves and others.
Remembering that everyone wants to be happy.
Yeah. And to practice small acts of generosity daily,
Those small acts can make such a big difference.
like holding the door for someone
Right.
or giving a genuine compliment. It doesn't have to be anything grand, right?
Exactly. And of course, she emphasizes the importance of formal loving kindness meditation. You know, setting aside time each day to cultivate those feelings of warmth and compassion.
Yeah. And her book includes some guided meditations too.
Right. That can help you get started.
So if people are new to this, that's a great place to begin. And then she also talks about deep listening, which I think is so important in our interactions with others.
Yes. It's about really being present with someone, not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Trying to understand their perspective,
Mm-hmm.
even if you disagree with them.
It's a gift we can give to others, I think.
It is.
And it's a practice in itself, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To truly listen without judgment.
And she also encourages us to watch our words,
Mm-hmm.
to refrain from speaking ill of others, even in their absence.
Yeah, because words have power, don't they?
They do.
And before we speak, it might be helpful to pause and ask ourselves, will this contribute to a more positive and compassionate world? It's a good question to ask.
And if not, maybe silence is the best option.
Sometimes.
Now, what about when we struggle with those feelings of compassion? You know, we're all human. We have bad days. What guidance does Salzberg offer for those times when we're just not feeling it?
Well, she acknowledges that it's not always easy.
Right.
You know, we're going to have difficult emotions. We're going to face challenging situations. But she emphasizes that we don't have to be perfect. The key is to simply keep practicing, to keep coming back to those intentions of mindfulness and loving kindness, even when we fall short.
It's a journey,
It is.
not a destination.
Right.
You don't have to achieve some flawless, enlightened state to be worthy of practicing these teachings.
Exactly. And she encourages us to be patient and to celebrate the small victories.
The small steps.
Yeah, it's like building a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
The more we practice, the stronger we become.
And just showing up is half the battle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Even if we don't feel like meditating, if we can just sit down on that cushion for a few minutes, something inevitably shifts.
Even if your mind is racing or you feel restless, just being present with those feelings is a form of practice.
It's about accepting ourselves where we are on the journey with all our imperfections.
Mm-hmm. And that self-acceptance is so important.
It is.
It's the foundation for everything else.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, what's resonating most with you so far? Like, what's standing out?
You know, for me, it's that reminder that meditation isn't about achieving some kind of perfection. It's about changing our relationship to our experiences, you know, to the pleasant ones and the unpleasant ones.
All of them.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off, don't you think?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming a meditation superstar.
Mhm.
It's about showing up, being present, and cultivating those qualities of mindfulness and loving kindness in each moment.
Exactly.
And what about you? What's resonating with you?
Well, I'm really drawn to the idea of shifting our attention to the good, looking for those glimmers of goodness, those acts of kindness, even in the midst of difficulty.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that there's always something to appreciate, always a reason for hope.
That's beautiful. And that leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive, where we'll explore more practical tips for bringing mindfulness and loving kindness into our everyday lives.
It's fascinating how Salzberg emphasizes that real transformation doesn't just happen on the meditation cushion.
It's about bringing it into everyday life.
Exactly.
Like, what's the point of cultivating all this inner peace if you can't access it when you're, like, stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult coworker?
Right. It's about bridging that gap, between our aspirations and our actions.
Yeah.
Salzberg talks about aligning our actions with our values
Mm.
and how meditation can help us pinpoint those areas where we might be falling short.
It's like looking in the mirror and asking, am I walking the walk or just talking the talk?
Exactly.
So where do we even begin?
Well, Salzberg suggests, first of all, just shifting our perspective on kindness, like seeing kindness as a strength, not a weakness.
I love that.
It's not about being a pushover or letting people walk all over you.
Right.
It's about approaching situations with wisdom and courage, choosing compassion, choosing understanding, even when it's difficult.
Even when it's the harder choice.
Exactly.
So how do we actually, do that
Well, one thing Salzberg suggests is to actively look for the good.
in ourselves and others?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the negativity,
It is.
to focus on what's wrong.
It's like our brains are wired for negativity bias.
Yeah.
But Salzberg encourages us to rewire our brains, to train our minds, to see the world through a different lens, to notice those small moments of joy and connection that we might otherwise miss.
So it's almost like retraining our attention,
Exactly.
like switching from a problem-focused mindset to a possibility-focused mindset.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so that's looking for the good. What about those people who are, difficult or even hurtful? Like, how do we extend loving kindness to those individuals?
Well, Salzberg reminds us that everyone deep down wants to be happy, even those who are acting in ways that appear destructive or harmful.
It's a tough one.
It is. It's a big ask, but it's about seeing their underlying humanity. Even if we don't condone their actions, it's about recognizing that they're on their own journey, that they're struggling in their own way.
So it's not about excusing bad behavior or becoming best friends with everyone who's hurt us, but it's about,
It's about cultivating a deeper understanding of the complexities of human nature.
okay, so how do we actually put these ideas into practice?
Yeah.
Like, what are some tangible steps we can take?
Well, one simple but powerful practice Salzberg suggests is to do small acts of generosity every single day.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything grand, holding a door open for someone, offering a genuine compliment, even just listening attentively to a friend who needs to vent.
Those are all good?
Those little acts of kindness,
They go a long way?
they can really brighten someone's day, and they also help us cultivate a more generous spirit in ourselves.
And she also emphasizes formal loving kindness meditation, right?
Absolutely.
Like setting aside time each day to just sit and practice.
Yeah, and her book includes some guided meditations. That can be really helpful, especially if you're new to the practice.
Yeah.
It's amazing how just a few minutes of focusing on those phrases of loving kindness can shift your whole energy.
It's like tuning into a different frequency.
It is.
Okay, so that's loving kindness meditation. What about just in our everyday interactions with people? Like, how can we be more mindful and compassionate in those moments?
Well, one thing she emphasizes is deep listening,
Uh-huh.
which is, it's not just about waiting for your turn to speak.
Yeah.
It's about truly being present and attentive to what the other person is saying, trying to understand their perspective.
Even if we disagree with them.
Yes, even if you disagree.
It's tough.
It can be challenging, but it's so rewarding when you can really listen to someone with an open heart and an open mind.
I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give to another person.
It
To feel truly heard and understood.
And it's a gift we can give to ourselves, too, because when we listen deeply, we learn so much.
Okay, so deep listening. Anything else?
Well, she also talks about the importance of watching our words, refraining from speaking ill of others.
Oh, yeah, gossip.
Yeah.
Negativity.
It's so easy to get caught up in that, but it's so damaging.
Yeah, it spreads like wildfire.
It does.
And it's not helpful.
So Salzberg encourages us to be mindful of our speech, to use our words to uplift and inspire
I like that.
instead of tearing down.
Okay, so we've got the small acts of generosity, the loving kindness meditation, the deep listening, watching our words.
Mm.
But what about those moments when, we're just not feeling it, we're human, we're going to have bad days?
Hmm.
What does Salzberg say about those times when we're struggling to be compassionate and kind?
Well, she acknowledges that it's not always easy.
Right.
We're going to have difficult emotions, we're going to face challenging situations, but she emphasizes that we don't have to be perfect.
It's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's important to
The
remember.
key is to keep practicing, to keep coming back to those intentions of mindfulness and loving kindness, even when we fall short.
So it's a process,
It is
a journey,
a lifelong journey.
not a destination.
Right.
We're all works in progress.
Exactly. And she encourages us to be patient with ourselves
Hmm.
and to celebrate those small victories.
Because those small victories add up, right?
They do.
Okay, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
Now, what about the long-term effects of these practices? Like, what happens when we really commit to mindfulness and loving kindness over time? What can we expect to see?
Well, Salzberg suggests that, for one, meditation helps rewrite those negative narratives, those limiting stories we tell ourselves.
About who we are and what we're capable of.
Exactly.
This can be so
They
insidious.
can. She shares the story about one of her students who realized that his experience of life had shifted after years of meditation practice. He said it was like he had been trapped in a small, dark theater, with a limited view.
Mm.
And then through meditation, it was like the walls of the theater dissolved.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly he was watching an opera under a vast open sky.
That's a beautiful image.
It is, isn't it? It's like meditation creates more space in our minds.
Yeah, more room to breathe, more perspective.
Exactly. And loving kindness meditation helps dissolve the illusion of separation.
That we're somehow fundamentally different from others.
Right. It helps us remember that we're all interconnected, part of the same human family, sharing the same desire for happiness and peace.
It's like we're all in the same cosmic subway car, even though we might be sitting in different seats.
That's a great way to put it.
I like that analogy. Now, how do we ensure our actions reflect those interchanges? How do we make sure our lives are aligned with the values we're cultivating on the meditation cushion?
Well, she suggests regularly examining our lives, taking a personal inventory, like asking ourselves, where am I falling short? Where are my actions out of sync with my values?
So like looking at our relationships, our work, our habits, and noticing areas that need adjusting.
Exactly.
Like where are we creating suffering for ourselves or others?
Yeah, and she suggests starting with those areas that are causing the most dissonance, the areas where our behavior is most out of alignment with our aspirations.
So it's not about trying to overhaul our entire lives overnight.
Right.
It's about choosing one or two areas
Mm-hmm.
where we can make small but meaningful changes.
Mm-hmm.
What resonates most with you about this idea?
I think for me, it's that reminder that we're not alone in this journey.
Right.
We can reach out for support.
Whether it's friends or family or a therapist or a teacher or a community.
Yeah, there are so many resources available, so many people who have walked this path before us and can offer guidance and support.
It's about finding your tribe.
Exactly.
Those people who understand the journey you're on and can offer encouragement along the way.
And Salzberg emphasizes patience. Change takes time. There will be setbacks. But the key is to just keep practicing, to keep coming back to those intentions of mindfulness and loving kindness, even when we stumble.
It's progress, not perfection.
That's it.
I love that.
Every time we choose mindfulness over reactivity, every time we choose kindness over judgment, we're moving in the right direction. We're strengthening those neural pathways. We're creating a more compassionate and harmonious world.
Yeah, and those small changes have a ripple effect, right? They extend outward from our own hearts into our relationships, our communities, and ultimately the world around us.
Absolutely.
It's inspiring to think about
It is.
that by cultivating inner peace and compassion, we're actually contributing to a collective shift.
Toward a more awakened and harmonious world.
So we don't have to wait to be happy.
No.
We can start cultivating those qualities right now.
In this moment.
Yeah. And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore how to, maintain those positive changes and navigate the inevitable challenges that arise along the path. It's really amazing how Salzberg addresses some of those, common concerns that people have about meditation. Like the fear of becoming passive or losing your ambition or something.
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Like meditation will turn you into some sort of blissed out zombie.
Right, totally detached from the world.
Exactly.
But Salzberg makes it clear that mindfulness isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's actually about engaging with it more fully.
But with more awareness.
Exactly, with heightened awareness and intention.
So it's not about like escaping reality.
No, not at all.
It's about being more present.
Mm-hmm. It's about being present while still making plans, making decisions, taking action in the world.
So you can still have goals. You can still be successful.
Absolutely.
You still be ambitious. You just do it with more awareness.
Right. It's not about becoming passive.
Yeah. And she also addresses, the concern that practicing loving kindness will make you vulnerable.
Oh, yeah, that you'll become a pushover.
Yeah, like you'll be too nice and people will take advantage of you.
Right.
But she really challenges that idea, right?
She does. She says that true compassion isn't weakness, it's actually strength.
Really?
It's about setting boundaries, speaking your truth, and taking skillful action to alleviate suffering, both your own and that of others.
So it's about being kind, but also being assertive.
Yes, exactly.
Like standing up for yourself and for what you believe in.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes the most compassionate response is to say no.
To refuse to participate in something that's harmful.
Exactly.
Or unethical.
Right. And Salzberg also makes it clear that practicing loving kindness doesn't require, liking everyone or condoning their behavior.
Yeah, you don't have to suddenly become best friends with your worst enemy.
No, not at all.
It's about recognizing that everyone, regardless of their actions, possesses that shared humanity.
That we all have the capacity for suffering and the potential for transformation.
It's about seeing that spark of divinity in everyone, even if it's buried under a lot of, baggage.
Right. And remembering that we're all interconnected,
Yeah.
part of this vast web of life.
Like that cosmic subway car.
Exactly.
We're all in it together.
And our actions have an impact on others, whether we realize it or not.
So let's talk about how we actually, live in alignment with these values. Like, how do we make sure that our actions are reflecting the qualities we're cultivating through these practices? What are some tips from Salzberg?
Well, she suggests we regularly examine our lives. Take a personal inventory. Ask yourself, where am I falling short? Where are my actions out of sync with my values?
So look at our relationships, our work, our habits, our thoughts, our speech, like everything.
Yeah, everything.
And notice those areas where we can make some adjustments.
And she recommends starting with the areas where there's the greatest discrepancy, between our aspirations and our actions.
Like, where's that gap?
Yeah, those situations that cause the most suffering for ourselves or others.
So it's not about, trying to change everything all at once.
No, that can be overwhelming.
Right.
It's about choosing one or two areas where you can make small but meaningful shifts.
What resonates most with you about this idea?
I think for me, it's that reminder that we don't have to do this alone.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
We can reach out for support. We can connect with a meditation community. We can read inspiring books, listen to guided meditations, talk to a therapist, talk to a spiritual teacher. There are so many resources available, so many people who have walked this path before us and can offer guidance and support.
It's like finding your tribe, your people.
Exactly.
Those who understand the journey you're on. And Salzberg also emphasizes patience, which I think is so important.
It is.
Because change takes time.
It does.
And there will be setbacks along the way. But the important thing is to just keep practicing.
Keep coming back to those intentions.
Of mindfulness and loving kindness.
Yeah, even when you stumble.
Yeah, even when you, totally mess up.
It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that.
Every step we take towards mindful awareness, every act of kindness, no matter how small, strengthens those neural pathways and contributes to a more compassionate and harmonious world.
And those small changes, like we were talking about earlier, they have a ripple effect.
They do.
They extend outward from our own hearts into our relationships, our communities, and the world around us.
It's amazing to think about.
It is, isn't it? It's so empowering to think that by cultivating inner peace and compassion, we're actively contributing to a collective shift.
Towards a more awakened and harmonious world.
So we don't have to wait to be happy.
No, we can start right now.
We can start cultivating those qualities in this moment.
Exactly.
It's been such a pleasure diving deep into real happiness with you.
It has.
And exploring Salzberg's teachings on mindfulness and loving kindness. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners have too.
I hope so.
And if you're feeling inspired to delve even deeper, I highly recommend revisiting Salzberg's book and audio meditations.
They're full of wisdom and practical guidance
They are.
for cultivating a more mindful and compassionate life.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep diving deep, and keep cultivating that real happiness that already exists within you.